Morecambe, the small seaside town on England's northwest coast, which is home to over 34,000 people, as well as a football club that was founded over a century ago. A member of the Football League for nearly 20 years, Morecambe climbed as high as the third tier of English football as recently as 2023. Just 2 years later, they find themselves in the semi-professional non-leagues and coming off the back of a strenuous fight for their existence. This is a story of how the Shrimps reached their peak, why they fell down the ranks of English football, and what the future could have in store for them. This is the story of Morecambe FC. Morecambe were founded in 1920 and participated in local divisions in the early years of their club's existence. The Shrimps claimed the first league title in 1925, and there wasn't much to write home about until the 1960s rolled around. This saw Morecambe appear in the third round of the FA Cup in 1962, as well as a Lancashire Senior Cup title in 1968, when they saw off Burnley 2-1. 1974 brought in an FA Trophy title after beating Dartford 2-1 at Wembley in the final. Morecambe made history in 2007 when they were promoted to the Football League for the first time in the club's 87-year history after beating Exeter City 2-1 at Wembley in front of 40,000 fans. Their first season, the EFL saw the Shrimps defeat two championship sides in the League Cup, Preston by a scoreline of 2-1 and Wolves by a scoreline of 3-1. They finished their first ever season in League Two in a comfortable 11th position, racking up 60 points from the campaign. Morecambe remained a consistent League Two side until they once again made history in 2021. Not only did they equal their furthest ever FA Cup run after being defeated by Chelsea in the third round, but Morecambe finished fourth in League Two with 78 points, just 1 point shy of automatic promotion. Morecambe defeated Tranmere Rovers on an aggregate scoreline of 3-2 in the playoff semi-finals, and then defeated Newport County at Wembley after an 107th minute winner with a strike from Carlos Mendes Gomez. Morecambe had achieved promotion to the third tier of English football for the first time in their 101-year history and made it out of League Two after a 14-year spell. The Shrimps were an absolute dreamland. Until they weren't. Morecambe were put up for sale in September 2022 due to financial difficulties. Now, that may come as a surprise. Why would a club that is doing the best they've ever done in their over 100-year history be struggling financially? Well, Morecambe's owners don't have the best track record. Jason Whittingham and Colin Goldring were the club's directors. Some of their previous business ventures included being associated with the collapse of Worcester Warriors Rugby Club, as well as being fined and taken to court just a month after putting Morecambe up for sale. In March of 2023, the players' wages were paid late. And the only reason they were paid at all was because Sarbert Johal, a businessman who was looking to take over the club, invested the necessary funds. In 2023, Morecambe were relegated from League One, and 14 players left the club after their contracts weren't renewed. Morecambe went into the season with a 3-point deduction, which is punishment for the players' wages being paid late earlier that year. December of the same year saw Whittingham fined over failure to pay players' wages, and he was fined an additional £10,000 in April of 2024, and Morecambe received another 3-point deduction. Despite all this, Morecambe miraculously stayed up, finishing the 2023-24 season in 15th place with a total tally of 58 points. About a month later, things seemed to go from bad to worse. 16 players departed the club, which meant only 5 remained on the first team. In June, Whittingham announced the club was speaking to 4 potential owners and was in advanced stages with one of them. However, Morecambe was fined over £5,000 for failing to meet payment obligations. In December of the same year, Morecambe were given a 2-point deduction after failing to meet payment obligations on 5 separate occasions. Owner Jason Whittingham was quoted saying, "With every fiber of my body, I cannot wait to get out of Morecambe. I no longer want to be the owner of the club." In April of 2025, Morecambe were relegated to the National League after 18 years in the EFL. They gained just 36 points from 46 league games. The EFL approved the sale of the club to the sports investment company Punjab Warriors. However, the Bond Group further delayed the sale by 6 weeks, which is strange given Whittingham said he didn't want to own the club anymore 6 months prior. The sale was then scheduled to take place on the 7th of July. However, the sale was once again delayed by Whittingham. Punjab Warriors said that this was due to Whittingham using the club as leverage in personal, unrelated financial matters. It reached a point that Morecambe's Member of Parliament, Lizzie Colleen, got involved, stating that Morecambe FC is being held hostage. The likes of Jason Whittingham should never have been allowed to buy a football club. 2 days later on the 9th of July, Whittingham stated that he had reached an agreement on a new last-minute deal with a separate UK buyer. This led to Punjab Warriors threatening to take legal action, the club being placed under a registration embargo by National League for breaching financial restrictions, and a report by The Guardian stated that the club could be banned from taking place in their first National League game of the season, as well as allowing players to leave for nothing if they weren't paid by the 18th of July. On the same day, Whittingham claimed the new sale would be finalized. This did not happen, and Punjab Warriors started to take action. At this point, things were truly getting out of control. Players were refusing to play until the ownership situation was sorted. A group of minority shareholders threatened to involve the High Court if the club wasn't sold within 48 hours. On the 20th of July, Whittingham announced that the sale had broken down, with both the new buyer as well as Punjab Warriors. The National League suspended Morecambe's membership the same day. Morecambe Football Club was founded over 100 years ago. They boast a devoted fan base and are the heartbeat of a community. Just 3 years ago, they were at the highest level of achievement they had ever seen. And now, they were fighting an uphill battle to simply exist. The livelihood looked almost certain to be stripped from thousands of supporters for no reason besides incompetent ownership. Morecambe FC's struggles had been ongoing for years at this point. The fans were always making sure the voices were heard, but now more people were starting to take notice. On the 1st of August, the UK Secretary of Culture Lisa Nandy urged Whittingham to sell the club, as well as stating that the new independent football regulator law would aid the situation. 5 days later, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer, urged everyone involved with the club to, quote, do the right thing. The pressure was building on Whittingham, and finally, he folded. On the 14th of August, 2025, Jason Whittingham's Bond Group announced that an agreement had been reached with Punjab Warriors for a takeover. Staff received their wages for the month of June. 2 days later, on the 20th of August, Morecambe announced that their opening fixture of the National League campaign would go ahead on the 23rd of August. Morecambe's transfer embargo was lifted. After nearly 3 years of living in uncertainty, Morecambe FC fans could finally breathe. Jason Whittingham's reign of terror was over. They maybe even had something to get excited about. There is obviously still a ways to go. Just days before the opening fixture, Morecambe still only reported 5 first-team players, and players being unable to train over a lack of insurance could lead to further postponements. But Morecambe FC fans have something they haven't had in a very long time. Security, relief, the ability to feel at ease. Ashri Singh Johal was named Morecambe's new manager on the 19th of August and is the first ever Sikh manager to manage a British football club. The 30-year-old has worked closely with Kolo Toure, both at Leicester City as well as at Wigan, and brings invaluable top-flight experience to the National League side. Now, what's the main takeaway from all of this? First of all, it would be wrong to not commend Morecambe fans for the grit and persistence they've shown over the past 3 years. No matter how many times they were disregarded, they never stopped standing up for their football club, and it looks like they've finally found someone that shares their vision as well as suits their needs. My main takeaway is that the EFL needs to learn. Wigan nearly went bust 5 years ago after they failed to run a simple background check on their new owner. Similar situations have unfolded with Sheffield Wednesday, Derby County, and Reading. Barry FC were expelled from the EFL in 2019. Being able to have a football club to support on the weekend shouldn't be too high of a demand. How many more fan bases have to suffer and watch their beloved clubs be driven to the ground by a bunch of clueless cronies? You may not be a Morecambe fan, you may not support Wigan, Sheffield Wednesday, Derby, Reading, or Barry either, but put yourself in the shoes of those supporters. Imagine if the future of your football club was uncertain because the EFL couldn't be bothered to do a quick Google search of someone's name before they bought a football club. All they care about is a quick money grab. Not only does the EFL not care about whether or not people buying football clubs are fit to do so or not, but when shit hits the fan, the measures they take to punish these owners usually just end up punishing the club staff and the club's fans, neither of whom asked for any of this. Morecambe were just 2 days away from potential expulsion from the EFL when the takeover was announced. As overjoyed as I was to hear the news, it shouldn't have ever been that close. The EFL must learn from this. Football must learn from this.